Sophia Bennett pressed her palm against the cool window of the hospice facility, watching autumn leaves scatter across the courtyard below. The morning sun painted everything golden, but she felt anything but bright. Her stomach churned with a nausea that had plagued her for weeks, and an exhaustion that no amount of sleep could cure. "You look pale, dear child," Grace Chen observed from her wheelchair. At 87, Grace had a way of seeing through people that made Sophia feel transparent. The elderly woman had been at Riverside Hospice for 3 months, and in that time, she had become more family to Sophia than her actual relatives. "I'm fine. Grace, just tired." Sophia managed to smile as she adjusted Grace's blanket. "How are you feeling today?" "Never mind me. I'm dying. That's my job." Grace's dark eyes sparkled with humor that her frail body couldn't diminish. "But you're young. You should be glowing with life, not looking like you've seen a ghost." Sophia had indeed seen something disturbing, though not a ghost. The positive pregnancy test hidden in her bag felt like a bomb waiting to explode her carefully managed life. It made no sense. She had never been intimate with anyone. The idea was medically impossible, yet the test didn't lie. 3 weeks ago, she had visited Riverside Medical Center for a routine examination. She'd been experiencing painful menstrual cycles, and the clinic's Dr. Helena Morrison had been recommended as the best gynecologist in the city. The appointment had been quick, professional, and unremarkable. Or so she had thought. "Sophia, are you listening?" Grace's voice pulled her back to the present. Sorry, I was distracted." "I can see that." "Whatever is troubling you, face it head on. That's the only way through darkness." Grace reached out with a trembling hand, and Sophia took it gently. "You're stronger than you think, my dear." If only that were true. Sophia had never felt more powerless than she did now. Standing in the hallway of the clinic later that afternoon, waiting to speak with Dr. Morrison, her hands shook as she clutched her medical file. The door opened, and Dr. Morrison emerged, her professional composure cracking for just a moment when she saw Sophia. Behind her stood an older man in an expensive suit, the clinic director, Mr. Pembroke. "Miss Bennett, please come in." Dr. Morrison's voice was strained. "We need to discuss something very serious." Sophia entered the office, her heart hammering. The room felt smaller than she remembered, the air thick with tension. "Miss Bennett," Mr. Pembroke began, his face grave, "there has been an incident. A very serious medical error involving your case." The words that followed felt like they were spoken underwater. Mix-up, wrong sample, insemination. These clinical terms swirled around her, refusing to form a coherent picture. "I don't understand," Sophia whispered. "I came here for an examination. Just an examination." Dr. Morrison's eyes glistened with unshed tears. "There was a catastrophic failure in our labeling system. You were given a fertility treatment intended for another patient. The procedure involved donor genetic material." The room tilted. Sophia gripped the edge of the desk to steady herself. "Whose genetic material?" Her voice came out hoarse. Mr. Pembroke and Dr. Morrison exchanged glances. Finally, the director spoke. "Julian Ashford." The name hung in the air like a lightning strike. Everyone knew Julian Ashford. Tech genius. Political power broker. The man whose decisions shaped industries and influenced governments. His face appeared on magazine covers and news programs. He was untouchable, unreachable, existing in a stratosphere so far above Sophia's world that they might as well live on different planets. "This is impossible," Sophia breathed. "This cannot be happening, Miss Bennett. We understand this is overwhelming," Mr. Pembroke continued. "The clinic accepts full responsibility. We're prepared to offer comprehensive support, including all medical expenses and significant financial compensation." Sophia's mind reeled. Does he know? Does Julian Ashford know about this? Not yet. "We wanted to speak with you first, but we must inform him immediately." "And the other woman? The one who was supposed to receive the treatment?" Dr. Morrison cleared her throat. "Natasha Whitmore, Mr. Ashford's fiancée. She also underwent the procedure that day. She received genetic material from a different donor. She's currently pregnant and believes the child is Mr. Ashford's." The complexity of the situation crashed over Sophia like a wave. Not only was she carrying the child of a man she'd never met, but that man was engaged to another woman who thought she was carrying his baby. I need air. Sophia stood abruptly. I need to think. Miss Bennet, please understand the sensitivity of this situation, Mr. Pembroke said urgently. Mr. Ashford is a public figure. If this becomes known, I'm not concerned about his reputation, Sophia interrupted, surprising herself with the steel in her voice. I'm concerned about what happens to me. To this baby. She left the clinic in a daze, walking through the city streets without destination. Her phone buzzed repeatedly, but she ignored it. The world had shifted on its axis, and she needed time to find her footing. By evening, she found herself at Riverside Hospice, drawn back to the only place that felt like home. Grace was sleeping, so Sophia sat quietly in the visitor's chair, watching the old woman's chest rise and fall. You came back, Grace murmured without opening her eyes. I knew you would. How did you know I'd left? I know many things, dear child. Grace's eyes opened, surprisingly clear. And I know that whatever happened today changed your life forever. Sophia felt tears threatening. I don't know what to do, Grace, and don't do anything yet. Sit with the truth. Let it settle. The right path will reveal itself. They sat in comfortable silence until Grace drifted back to sleep. Sophia was about to leave when her phone rang. Unknown number. Against her better judgment, she answered. Miss Bennet. The voice was deep, controlled, unmistakably male. This is Julian Ashford. I believe we need to talk. Sophia's breath caught. How did you get this number? The clinic provided it. I apologize for the late hour, but this matter is urgent. Can we meet tomorrow? Mr. Ashford, I don't think, please. The words stopped her. It wasn't a command, but a genuine request. I understand this is difficult for both of us, but we need to discuss what happens next. For both our sakes. Sophia closed her eyes. Grace's words echoed in her mind. Face it head on. Where? She asked. There's a private estate on the north side of the city, Evergreen Manor. Tomorrow at 2 o'clock. I'll have my driver collect you. I can find my own way. Miss Bennet, I'm not trying to control you. I'm trying to protect both of our privacy. The press doesn't need to know about this meeting. He had a point. Sophia gave him her address and ended the call. That night, she barely slept. Her mind painted scenarios, each more impossible than the last. What did Julian Ashford want from her? Money to make this disappear? A legal agreement to stay silent? Would he demand she terminate the pregnancy? The thought made her hand instinctively move to her still flat stomach. Despite the chaos, despite the impossibility of it all, she already felt connected to this tiny life growing inside her. The circumstances didn't matter. This child was hers. The next afternoon, a sleek black car arrived precisely at 1:30. The driver was professional and silent, taking her through winding roads to a secluded estate surrounded by towering evergreens. The house itself was modern yet warm, all glass and natural wood. Designed to blend with the forest around it, Julian Ashford stood on the front steps, waiting for her. Sophia's first thought was that photographs didn't capture him accurately. He was taller than she expected, with dark hair touched with silver at the temples and eyes that were startlingly blue against his tan skin. He wore casual clothes, jeans, and a sweater, but carried himself with an authority that needed no suit to establish. Miss Bennet, he said, walking forward to meet her. Thank you for coming. I'm not sure I had much choice. She kept her voice steady, despite her racing heart. Something flickered in his eyes. Respect, perhaps. You always have a choice. Please come inside. The interior was as impressive as the exterior, but what struck Sophia most was how lived in it felt. Books lined the shelves. A half-finished chess game sat on a side table. Family photos dotted the mantel. This wasn't a showpiece. This was a home. Can I offer you something? Tea, water, Julian asked. Water, please. He returned with 2 glasses, and they sat in a sun-filled room overlooking a garden. For a moment, neither spoke. I won't pretend to understand what you're feeling, Julian finally said. This situation is unprecedented for both of us. That's one way to put it, Sophia replied. His lips twitched. Almost a smile. You're not what I expected. What did you expect? Someone more intimidated. Most people are when they meet me. Should I be intimidated? No. His answer was immediate and firm. You should be angry. You should be demanding answers and compensation. You have every right to both. Sophia studied him carefully. This wasn't the cold mogul she'd imagined. There was something genuine in his directness, a weariness in his eyes that spoke of his own struggles. What do you want from me, Mr. Ashford? Julian, please. He set down his glass. I want to understand what you want, what you need. And then I want to discuss a solution that protects both of us and, most importantly, protects the child you're carrying. A solution. Sophia's voice hardened. You mean making this problem disappear? No. Julian leaned forward, his gaze intense. I mean acknowledging reality and dealing with it honestly. The afternoon light shifted as they sat in silence, each processing the enormity of what lay between them. Sophia watched Julian carefully, noting how his fingers tapped against his knee. The only sign of nervousness in his otherwise composed demeanor. Let me be direct, Julian said finally. Natasha, my fiancée, believes she's carrying my child. Our arrangement was always more strategic than romantic. A merger of families, influence, and resources. But now everything has become complicated in ways neither of us anticipated. An arrangement? Sophia repeated the word with distaste. You are going to marry someone you don't love? Love is a luxury in my world, Miss Bennett. Partnerships are built on mutual benefit, shared goals, and respect. That sounds incredibly lonely. The observation seemed to surprise him. His blue eyes studied her with new interest. Perhaps it is. But it's also practical, safe. Safe from what? Julian stood and walked to the window, his broad shoulders tense. From loss. From the kind of pain that breaks you. I lost my wife 5 years ago, Carolyn. She was 8 months pregnant with our son when her car was struck by a drunk driver. They both died instantly. The words hit Sophia like a physical blow. Beneath the powerful exterior was a man shaped by devastating grief. So sorry, she whispered. I learned then that loving people makes you vulnerable in ways that power and money cannot protect against. So I stopped. I built walls. I made arrangements instead of relationships. He turned back to face her. And now fate has given me another chance at fatherhood, in the most bizarre circumstances imaginable. Sophia's hand moved instinctively to her stomach. What are you proposing? Marriage. The word hung between them like a grenade. That can't be serious. Completely serious. Julian returned to his seat, leaning forward with intensity. Think about it logically. If this becomes public knowledge, the scandal will destroy both our lives. You'll be hounded by media, your privacy obliterated. I'll face questions about my judgment, my fitness for the political advisory roles I hold, and our child will grow up under that shadow. So you want to hide the truth? I want to control the narrative. We marry quietly, present a united front. You gain financial security, the best medical care, protection from scrutiny. I gain the ability to know my child, to be a father without the circus that would otherwise ensue. Sophia shook her head in disbelief. You're asking me to marry a stranger. I'm offering you a partnership. Like I had with Natasha, but with one crucial difference. This child is actually mine. This child is real. And what about Natasha? What happens to her? I'll tell her the truth. She deserves to know. The clinic has already informed her that there was a mix-up with the genetic material. She's deciding what to do about her pregnancy. Sophia stood abruptly, pacing the room. This is insane. People don't just marry strangers because of a medical mistake. People do far stranger things for far less important reasons. Julian's voice was calm, rational. Sophia, I know this sounds cold, but consider the alternative. You're a hospice nurse, making modest wages. How will you afford childcare? Medical bills. The life complications of single motherhood? I'll manage. People do it every day. You don't have to struggle alone. Not when I can provide everything this child needs, except love. The words came out sharp. You can provide money and security, but what about warmth? Affection? A real family? Julian's jaw tightened. I can't promise feelings I don't have, but I can promise respect, protection, and commitment to our child's well-being. Is that not worth something? Sophia stopped pacing and faced him directly. What if I say no? Then I'll still provide financial support for the child. I'll still want to be involved as a father. But everything will be infinitely more complicated. Every interaction scrutinized. Every decision requiring lawyers and negotiations. Is that what you want for our child? The question struck at the heart of her dilemma. Sophia thought of Grace's words about facing things head-on, about being stronger than she thought. I need time, she said finally. Of course. Take 3 days. Think it over. But Sophia, understand this. His blue eyes held hers with unwavering focus. This isn't about us. It's about giving this child the best possible start in life. Everything else is secondary. The car ride home felt surreal. Sophia's mind spun with possibilities, each more daunting than the last. When she arrived at her modest apartment, she found her stepmother Vivian waiting in the lobby, her expression cold. Where have you been? Your father has been trying to reach you. Had an appointment. An appointment. Vivian's eyes narrowed. You look different. Pale. Are you pregnant? The directness of the question made Sophia's stomach drop. That's none of your business. It is as if you're planning to bring shame on this family. Your father has enough problems without you adding to them. Sophia pushed past her, anger flaring. I'm not part of your family, Vivian. I haven't been since my mother died, and you convinced my father I was too much trouble. She slammed her apartment door, heart racing. The small space felt suffocating. She needed advice, perspective, someone who could help her think clearly. That evening, she returned to Riverside Hospice. Grace was awake, reading by lamplight. You came back again, Grace observed with a knowing smile. This must be serious. Sophia sank into the chair beside her bed, and for the first time, told someone the entire truth. Grace listened without interruption, her wise eyes never leaving Sophia's face. So this powerful man wants to marry you, Grace summarized when Sophia finished. Not for love, but for convenience and protection. Yes. And you're considering it because you want security for your child. Partially. But also because he has a right to know his child. Despite everything, I could see the pain in him, Grace. He lost a wife and baby before. This is his second chance. Grace reached out and took Sophia's hand. Let me tell you something, dear child. I was married for 62 years to my husband. We met when I was 19, married at 20. Everyone said we were too young, that it wouldn't last. But do you know what made it last? What we grew together? We changed together. We learned love wasn't something you had at the beginning, but something you built every single day through small choices and kindnesses. Grace squeezed her hand. This Julian, he thinks love is a luxury. Maybe you're meant to teach him it's a necessity. You think I should marry him? I think you should be honest with yourself about what you want. Not for the child, not for security, but for you. Can you imagine sharing your life with this man? Can you picture waking up beside him, learning his habits, his fears, his dreams? If the answer is yes, or even maybe, then perhaps this strange beginning could lead somewhere beautiful. Sophia sat with those words long into the night. She thought about Julian's grief, his careful control, the walls he'd built around himself. She thought about her own loneliness, her yearning for family and belonging, and she thought about the tiny life growing inside her, innocent of all the complications its existence had created. 3 days later, she called Julian. I have conditions, she said without preamble. I'm listening. We don't pretend to have feelings we don't have. We're honest with each other. Always. Second, I continue working at the hospice as long as I'm physically able. Third, we have separate bedrooms and my privacy is respected. And fourth, if either of us becomes genuinely unhappy, we find a way to end this without destroying each other. There was a pause. Then Julian's voice, warmer than she'd heard it before. Those are fair terms. I accept them all. Then yes, I'll marry you. The wedding took place 1 week later in a private ceremony at the courthouse, with only 2 witnesses present. Sophia wore a simple cream-colored dress that Julian had sent over, elegant without being ostentatious. When she arrived, she found Julian in a charcoal suit, looking both powerful and unexpectedly nervous. The ceremony was brief. The judge spoke the traditional words, but they felt hollow without love to give them meaning. When Julian took her hands for the vows, Sophia noticed they were slightly cold. "Sophia Bennett," he began, his voice steady, "I promise to provide for you and protect you. I promise to respect your independence and your wishes. I promise to be a father to our child, to put their needs above my own, and I promise to treat you with the dignity and consideration you deserve." The vows were practical, careful, and somehow that made them more poignant. When it was her turn, Sophia looked into his blue eyes and spoke from a place deeper than logic. "Julian Ashford, I promise to be honest with you, even when it's difficult. I promise to respect the man you are while believing in the man you could become. I promise to be a good mother to our child and to make our house a home. And I promise to give this arrangement every chance to become something real." Something flickered in Julian's eyes at those last words. Surprise? Perhaps. Or hope. When the judge pronounced them married and invited Julian to kiss his bride, there was a moment of hesitation. Then Julian cupped her face gently and pressed his lips to hers. It was meant to be perfunctory, a formality. But the contact sparked something unexpected. A warmth that traveled from Sophia's lips through her entire body. They broke apart quickly. Both shaken by the intensity of that brief connection, the judge smiled. "Congratulations, Mr. and Mrs. Ashford." Julian took Sophia to his primary residence that evening, a stunning modern home nestled in the hills overlooking the city. The architecture was breathtaking, all clean lines and floor-to-ceiling windows. "This is your home now, too," Julian said, as he gave her a tour. "Feel free to change anything you'd like." Sophia explored the beautiful spaces, noting the expensive art and designer furniture. Everything was perfect and impersonal, like a magazine spread. "It's very beautiful," she said carefully, but it doesn't feel lived in. It feels like a showroom." Julian looked around as if seeing the space through new eyes. "Carolyn decorated our previous home. After she died, I sold it. Couldn't bear to live there. When I bought this place, I hired designers. I never really thought about making it personal. May I add some personal touches? Nothing dramatic, just some warmth. It's your home now, Sophia. Do whatever you like." Over the next few days, Sophia began subtly transforming the house. She added throw blankets in rich colors, placed fresh flowers in various rooms, hung family photos she'd asked Julian to share from storage. She created reading nooks with comfortable chairs and good lighting. Slowly, the showroom became a home. Julian watched these changes with something like wonder. One evening, he found her in the kitchen attempting to cook dinner. "You don't have to cook," he said. "I have a private chef on call." "I know, but I like cooking. It relaxes me." She glanced at him. "Unless you'd prefer I didn't." "No, I just assumed you'd want to take advantage of the staff. Not good at being waited on." She stirred the sauce she was making. "Would you like to help? Or do powerful moguls not cook?" He surprised her by rolling up his sleeves. "I'll have you know I make excellent scrambled eggs." "Just eggs?" "It's a very important skill." They worked together in companionable silence, and Sophia found herself relaxing around him for the first time. Julian was surprisingly competent in the kitchen, following her instructions with focused attention. Carolyn used to say, "I treated cooking like a military operation," Julian said suddenly. "Too precise, too controlled." "I think precision is good in cooking. It shows you care about the outcome." He glanced at her with unexpected warmth. "That's a generous interpretation." They ate dinner at the large dining table, which felt absurdly formal for 2 people. Halfway through the meal, Sophia couldn't take it anymore. "Can we eat in the living room?" "This feels like a business meeting." Julian looked surprised, but nodded. They moved to the more casual space, sitting on the comfortable sofa Sophia had chosen, and the conversation flowed more easily. "Tell me about your work," Julian said. "Why hospice care?" Sophia set down her fork. "When my mother was dying, she spent her last weeks in a hospice. The nurses there were angels. They made her comfortable, treated her with dignity, helped her find peace. I wanted to give that gift to other families. It's beautiful and difficult. It is, but also rewarding. Grace, one of my patients, has become like family. She's taught me so much about living fully, even when death is near." "I'd like to meet her," Julian said quietly. Sophia looked at him in surprise. "Really? If someone is important to you, they should be important to me. That's how partnerships work, isn't it?" The thoughtfulness of the gesture touched something deep in Sophia's heart. Maybe Grace was right. Maybe this man could learn to open his heart again that night. As Sophia prepared for bed in her private suite, she heard a soft knock on her door. "Come in." Julian entered, looking uncharacteristically uncertain. He wore casual clothes, his dark hair slightly mussed. "I wanted to check on you. Make sure you had everything you needed." "I'm fine. The room is lovely." He nodded but didn't leave. Instead, he walked to the window, looking out at the city lights below. "Sophia, I know this situation is strange. I know I'm not what you dreamed of when you imagined marriage. But I want you to know that I'll do everything in my power to make this work. For you and for our child." She joined him at the window. "I believe you." He turned to face her, and in the soft lamplight, his features seemed gentler, more vulnerable. "When you said your vows today, you said you believed in the man I could become. What did you mean?" Sophia considered her words carefully. "I meant that you're not as closed off as you think you are. You've experienced terrible loss, so you've protected yourself. But protection becomes a prison if you're not careful. I think there's more warmth in you than you allow yourself to show." Julian's jaw tightened with emotion. "Caroline used to say something similar." She said, "I led with my head because I was afraid of my heart." Was she right? Yes, the admission seemed to cost him. After she died, feeling anything at all was unbearable. So I stopped. I became efficient, strategic, controlled. It was easier that way, but not better, Sophia said softly. "No, not better." He looked at her with startling honesty. "You make me want to try again, to feel again. That terrifies me." Sophia reached out and took his hand. The gesture was simple, but the contact sent electricity through both of them. "We don't have to rush anything," she said. "We can take this one day at a time. Let whatever happens between us unfold naturally." Julian squeezed her hand gently. "Thank you for taking this chance on me." On us? After he left, Sophia lay in bed with her hand on her growing belly, feeling the first flutter of hope that maybe, just maybe, this unconventional beginning could lead to something extraordinary. The next 3 months transformed their lives in ways neither expected. Sophia's pregnancy became visible, her body changing to accommodate the new life growing within. Julian proved to be unexpectedly attentive, attending every doctor's appointment, reading pregnancy books with the same intensity he brought to business negotiations, and preparing the nursery with meticulous care. But the real changes were subtler, more profound. They began having breakfast together each morning, sharing comfortable silences and easy conversation. Julian showed Sophia his work, explaining the complex political and business decisions he navigated. Sophia introduced him to Grace, and the elderly woman's wisdom seemed to touch something in Julian that had been dormant for years. "She reminds me of my grandmother," Julian told Sophia one evening after visiting the hospice. "The same way of seeing through pretense to the truth underneath." "Grace likes you," Sophia said. "She told me you have kind eyes, even when you're trying to be intimidating. I've never tried to intimidate you, not intentionally perhaps, but you do have a way of commanding a room." They were in the living room, Sophia reading while Julian worked on his laptop. These quiet domestic moments had become their favorite part of each day, a peaceful routine that felt remarkably like a real marriage. The peace shattered on a Wednesday afternoon when Natasha Whitmore appeared. At their door, Sophia answered the bell to find a striking woman with sharp features and sharper eyes standing on the threshold. She was elegantly dressed in a designer suit, her posture radiating confidence and barely contained anger. "You must be Sophia," Natasha said without preamble. "We need to talk." Julian appeared behind Sophia, his face carefully neutral. "Natasha, this isn't a good time. I don't care. I've been patient for 3 months, Julian. I've kept quiet while you played house with your accidental bride. But enough is enough. We need to discuss the future, all 3 of us." Sophia stepped back, allowing Natasha inside. Better to face this confrontation than to let it fester. They gathered in the living room, tension crackling in the air. Natasha's eyes swept over Sophia's visible pregnancy with something like pain. "I terminated my pregnancy last month," Natasha said bluntly. "The child wasn't Julian's, wasn't the result of the partnership our families had planned." There was no point in continuing. Sophia felt a pang of sympathy, despite Natasha's hostility. "I'm sorry. That must have been a difficult decision. Don't patronize me with your small-town kindness." Natasha's voice was sharp. "You have no idea what you've destroyed. Julian and I had an arrangement that would have benefited both our families, our businesses, our futures. And now he's tied to you, a nobody nurse with no connections, no influence, nothing to offer." "That's enough, Natasha." Julian's voice cut through the room like a blade. "Sophia is my wife. You will treat her with respect in our home, your wife." Natasha laughed bitterly. "Do you love her, Julian? Or is this just another arrangement like ours would have been?" The question hung in the air, demanding an answer. Sophia held her breath, suddenly desperate to hear Julian's response. "My feelings for Sophia are none of your concern," Julian said carefully. "So that's a no." Natasha turned her sharp gaze on Sophia. "You should know what you're getting into. Julian Ashford doesn't love. He strategizes, he arranges, he controls. But he doesn't open his heart. His first wife was the only woman who ever reached him, and when she died, that door closed permanently." "You don't know anything about us?" Sophia said quietly, but with steel in her voice. "Whatever Julian and I have, it's ours. It's real. And it's none of your business. Real." Natasha's smile was cruel. "Give it time. When the novelty wears off, when the baby is born and reality sets in, you'll see. You'll be nothing but a glorified nanny in a beautiful cage. Leave." Julian stood, his presence suddenly overwhelming. "Now." Natasha gathered her designer purse with controlled grace. "I came here to tell you that my father is withdrawing his support for your political ambitions. The partnership between our families is over. I hope she was worth the cost, Julian." After Natasha left, silence filled the house like smoke. Sophia stood by the window, arms wrapped around herself, staring out at nothing. "I'm sorry you had to hear that," Julian said finally. "Was she right?" Sophia turned to face him. "About you?" "About us." "Which part?" "All of it. Are we just an arrangement? Am I just a convenient solution to an inconvenient problem?" Julian crossed the room to her, and Sophia saw something in his eyes she hadn't seen before. Fear. "When I proposed this marriage, that's exactly what it was," he admitted. "A practical solution to an impossible situation. I didn't expect to feel anything beyond obligation and responsibility. And now you've turned my carefully ordered life upside down. You've made this house feel like a home. You've made me laugh again. You've reminded me what it feels like to look forward to coming home at the end of the day." He paused, struggling with words. "You've made me feel again, Sophia. And that terrifies me more than any business negotiation or political battle ever could." Sophia's heart raced. "Julian, what are you saying?" "I'm saying that somewhere along the way, this stopped being an arrangement. At least for me." He took her hands in his. "I don't know if what I feel is love. I'm not sure I remember what love feels like. But I know that I think about you constantly. That your smile makes something in my chest feel lighter. That the thought of you being unhappy causes me actual physical pain." The tears pricked Sophia's eyes. "I've been falling in love with you," she whispered. "I've been fighting it, telling myself it was just proximity, just gratitude. But the truth is, I love you, Julian. Not the powerful mogul or the political advisor, but you. The man who reads pregnancy books like they're mission briefings. The man who sits with Grace and listens to her stories. The man who's terrified of feeling but feels so deeply anyway. Julian pulled her close, his arms wrapping around her with desperate tenderness. I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to love without fear of losing everything again. You do it one day at a time, Sophia said into his chest. You do it by choosing me and letting me choose you every single day. He pulled back to look at her face, his blue eyes intense. I choose you, Sophia, today and every day. I choose you. When he kissed her this time, it wasn't perfunctory or careful. It was deep and passionate, full of all the feelings they'd been holding back for months. Sophia felt herself melting into him. Both breathing hard, foreheads pressed together. I love you, Julian said. The words sounding rusty but genuine. I love you, and it terrifies me. But I'm done pretending otherwise. The following weeks were a revelation. Julian allowed himself to be vulnerable in ways Sophia had never imagined. He told her stories about Caroline, about his childhood, about his fears and insecurities. In return, Sophia shared her own history, her complicated relationship with her father, her dreams of creating a real family. They made love for the first time on a rainy Sunday afternoon, tentative at first, then with growing passion. Afterward, lying in Julian's arms, Sophia felt a completeness she'd never experienced before. I didn't know it could be like this, Julian murmured, stroking her hair. With Caroline, it was passionate but turbulent. We fought as hard as we loved. But with you, it's different. Peaceful. Right? Every relationship is different, Sophia said. That doesn't diminish what you had with her. It just means what we have is ours, unique to us. Grace passed away peacefully one October evening with Sophia and Julian both at her bedside. The elderly woman smiled at them as her breathing grew shallow. You found it, Grace whispered to Sophia. The real thing? I can go now, knowing you're truly loved. Thank you, Sophia said through tears. For everything. Grace's eyes moved to Julian. Protect her heart. It's the most valuable thing you'll ever possess. I will, Julian promised. With everything I have, Grace closed her eyes and slipped away quietly, a slight smile on her face. Sophia wept in Julian's arms while he held her close, his own tears falling into her hair. She gave me so much, Sophia said. Hope, wisdom, courage. She gave us both a gift, Julian said. She helped me understand that loving again wasn't betraying Caroline's memory. It was honoring it by choosing to live fully as Caroline would have wanted. Their daughter was born on a snowy December night, 6 weeks before her due date. Complications arose during delivery, and for terrifying hours Julian sat in the waiting room, reliving his worst nightmare. But this time, the story had a different ending. Sophia emerged, exhausted but alive, with a tiny, perfect baby girl in her arms. Meet our daughter, Sophia said softly. Julian approached slowly, as if afraid his touch might shatter the moment. When he held his daughter for the first time, his face transformed. All his careful control evaporated, replaced by pure, unguarded love. She's perfect, he whispered. Absolutely perfect. What should we name her? Sophia asked. Julian looked at his wife and daughter, his heart so full it felt like it might burst. Grace, he said. If you agree, Grace Caroline. Sophia smiled through happy tears. It's perfect. 6 months later, they held a renewal of vows ceremony, this time surrounded by friends and family. No longer a practical arrangement, but a celebration of genuine love. As Julian spoke his vows, looking into Sophia's eyes while baby Grace cooed in her grandmother's arms, his voice was strong and clear. But Sophia, when we married the first time, I promised you security and protection. I promised partnership and respect. Today, I promise you more. I promise you my heart, completely and without reservation. I promise to love you not just for who you are, but for who we become together. I promise to choose joy over fear, to choose vulnerability over control, to choose us, always us. Sophia's vows were equally heartfelt. Julian, you taught me that love doesn't always arrive perfectly wrapped. Sometimes it comes disguised as mistakes and accidents and impossible situations. But those messy beginnings can lead to the most beautiful destinations. You are my partner, my love, my home, and I choose you every single day for the rest of my life. When they kissed this time, it was before people who loved them, in a home filled with warmth and laughter, with their daughter as witness to the miracle of second chances. That evening, as they tucked Grace into her crib and prepared for bed, Julian pulled Sophia close. You ever think about how differently this could have turned out? He asked, if you'd said no. If I'd chosen control over courage, sometimes, Sophia admitted. But I'm grateful for every choice that led us here. Even the mistake that started it all. The most beautiful mistake of my life, Julian murmured. Kissing her softly, they stood together in the nursery doorway, watching their daughter sleep. Their intertwined hands a symbol of everything they'd built together. What began as an impossible situation had become an extraordinary love story. Proof that sometimes the best things in life are the ones we never planned for at all. Outside, snow fell softly over the city, covering everything in pristine white. Inside, a family born from chaos and choice, from accident and intention, from fear and courage, settled into their home, their love a warm light against the winter darkness. Thank you for taking the time to listen to this story. If you enjoyed this content, don't forget to click like. Share this story with your friends and family, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on more meaningful stories.
Emma Baker stared at her phone, her hands trembling as she typed the desperate message. James, I hate to ask again, but I need $40 for Lily's formula. I get paid Friday, I swear I'll pay you back. She hit send before she could change her mind, then slumped against her threadbare couch, exhaustion washing over her. The baby monitor crackled with the soft sounds of her 6-month-old daughter's breathing. Emma had exactly $2. 13 in her checking account, no formula, and had already watered down the last bottle more than she should have. The text was humiliating, but her pride meant nothing compared to her daughter's hunger. 3 miles away, in the penthouse office of Meridian Technologies, Alexander Reed's phone buzzed. The 42-year-old CEO glanced at the notification, expecting another update from his executive team about the pending merger. Instead, he found himself staring at a message clearly not meant for him. Alexander frowned, running a hand through his salt and pepper hair. He rarely used this personal number, a select few even had it. This was obviously a wrong number, yet something about the raw desperation in those few lines made him pause before dismissing it. Emma's phone pinged with a response that made her heart stop. I think you have the wrong number. I'm not James. Horror washed over her as she checked the number. She had mistyped the last digit of her brother's new phone number. I'm so sorry, she typed back quickly. Please ignore that. Wrong number. She tossed her phone aside, mortification burning through her exhaustion. Another failure in a long string of them. Alexander couldn't explain why he didn't simply acknowledge her apology and move on. Perhaps it was the mention of a baby, or maybe it was just the welcome distraction from the cutthroat negotiations that had consumed his life for months. Is your baby going to be okay? He typed, surprising himself. When Emma saw the response, she blinked in confusion. Why would a stranger care? Her first instinct was caution. She'd heard plenty of stories about predators online, but exhaustion and desperation weakened her usual defenses. We'll manage, she replied curtly. Sorry to bother you. I could help, came the immediate response. No strings attached. Emma snorted. In her experience, there were always strings. Thanks, but I don't take money from strangers, she wrote back. Smart policy, Alexander replied. He hesitated, then added, I'm Alex. Now I'm not a stranger. What formula does your baby need? Emma stared at the message, torn between suspicion and a flicker of hope. Why would you help someone you don't know? In his office, Alexander looked out over the city skyline. Why, indeed, his assistant would say he was procrastinating on reviewing the merger documents. His ex-wife would say he was having another impulsive moment. Both would be partially right. Let's just say I've been fortunate, and I remember when I wasn't, he replied. It wasn't the whole truth, but it wasn't a lie either. Emma's exhaustion clouded her judgment. She hadn't slept more than 3 consecutive hours in days. The formula was en famille gentlies, Lily had colic, and it was the only brand that didn't make her scream for hours. It was also the most expensive one on the shelf. I don't feel right about this, she typed. What's your Venmo? Alexander asked. Emma hesitated, then sent her username. What did she have to lose? She could always block this person if things got weird. Seconds later, her phone buzzed with a notification. Emma gasped. This Alex hadn't sent $40. He'd sent $400. This is too much, she typed frantically. I can't accept this. Consider it an advance for the next few months, Alexander replied. One less thing to worry about. Tears sprang to Emma's eyes, blurring her vision. She hadn't cried when she'd been laid off from the accounting firm 2 months ago. She hadn't cried when James, her only remaining family, had moved across the country for work, leaving her without her safety net. She hadn't even cried when her landlord had slipped the late notice under her door yesterday. But this unexpected kindness from a complete stranger broke something loose inside her. Thank you, she typed simply, unable to find words adequate for her gratitude. You're welcome, Emma, Alexander replied. Take care of Lily. It wasn't until hours later, as Emma returned from the store with formula and groceries, that she realized something that made her blood run cold. She had never mentioned her daughter's name to this stranger. The next morning, Emma woke to another message from the mysterious Alex. Hope you and Lily had a better night. I have a proposition for you. Emma's guard immediately went up. Here it comes, she thought bitterly, the strings. What kind of proposition? She asked warily. Professional, not personal, came the swift reply. I run a company called Meridian Technologies. We need someone with accounting skills for a short-term project. Your brother James mentioned you were looking for work. Emma nearly dropped her phone. How do you know my brother? How do you know I'm an accountant? Her heart raced as she checked her social media profiles, all set to private. Who was this person? I apologize for the intrusion, Alexander wrote. After our conversation, I was curious. Your number is very similar to James Connors, who works in my HR department. When I mentioned the wrong number text to him this morning, he realized who you must be. He speaks very highly of your accounting skills. Emma sank onto her couch, relief and wariness battling for dominance. It was a reasonable explanation, but still unsettling. So this was all just a coincidence? Completely, Alexander confirmed, but perhaps a fortunate one for both of us. We genuinely need help with a project reconciling some accounts before a merger. It's a 3-month contract with the possibility of permanent placement. Would you be interested in interviewing? Emma's mind raced. It seemed too perfect, too convenient. Yet her brother did indeed work in HR at some tech company. She'd never paid much attention to the details. She'd been sending out resumes for weeks with no response. Could she really afford to turn down this opportunity out of suspicion? I'd be interested in hearing more, she finally replied cautiously, but I'd need flexibility. I have Lily, and childcare is... We offer on-site childcare for employees, Alexander wrote back immediately. And flexible working hours. Come in tomorrow at 10 a.m. I'll tell reception to expect you. As Emma prepared Lily's morning bottle, she couldn't shake the feeling that something about this situation wasn't adding up. The coincidence seemed too perfect, the timing too convenient. But with her savings depleted and rent due, did she really have the luxury of looking this gift horse in the mouth? What she didn't know was that across town, Alexander Reed was having second thoughts about his impulsive decision, wondering if he'd overstepped boundaries in a way that would come back to haunt them both. The Meridian Technologies headquarters loomed above Emma like a gleaming monolith of glass and steel. She adjusted Lily's carrier on her arm, straightened her only professional blazer, thrifted but still presentable, and pushed through the revolving doors. The security guard at the front desk smiled as she approached. Emma Baker, he asked before she could speak. At her surprised nod, he continued, Mr. Reed's office is on the top floor. Martha will meet you at the elevator. The smooth efficiency with which she was escorted through the building only heightened Emma's sense of unreality. This wasn't how job interviews usually went, especially not for temporary accounting positions. An elegant woman in her 50s met her as promised and led her not to a conference room or HR office, but directly to a corner suite with views that made Emma momentarily forget her anxiety. He'll be with you shortly, Martha said, gesturing to a sitting area. Can I get you anything? Coffee, water? Water would be nice, thank you, Emma replied, settling Lily's carrier on the soft leather couch beside her. The baby was mercifully asleep, exhausted from the morning's preparations. Emma used the moment alone to take in her surroundings. The office was surprisingly warm for a CEO's lair. Bookshelves lined one wall and family photos dotted the desk. A guitar stood in one corner, incongruous against the backdrop of corporate success. "She looks peaceful," came a deep voice from the doorway. Emma turned to find a tall man watching her with keen interest. His expensive suit couldn't hide the athletic build beneath, and laugh lines around his eyes softened what might otherwise have been an intimidating presence. This, she realized with a jolt, was Alexander Reed, the stranger who had sent her $400 for baby formula. "Mr. Reed," she said, standing quickly. "Thank you for seeing me." "Alex, please," he corrected, moving forward to shake her hand. His grip was firm but brief. "And thank you for coming in on such short notice." There was an awkward pause as they both seemed to acknowledge the strange circumstances that had brought them together. "I should explain yesterday's texts," he said finally, taking a seat across from her. "I don't make a habit of sending money to wrong numbers, and I don't make a habit of accepting it," Emma countered, finding her voice. "I'm still not entirely comfortable with how this all happened." Alex nodded, respecting her directness. "Fair enough. The truth is, your message came at a particular moment. Yesterday was the anniversary of my daughter's death." Emma's breath caught. "I'm so sorry." "Charlotte would have been 8, he continued, his eyes drifting to Lily. "Leukemia. She fought for 3 years." Emma instinctively reached for Lily's carrier, a protective gesture that didn't go unnoticed. "When I got your text about needing formula," Alex said, "it felt like, I don't know, a chance to help someone the way I couldn't help her." The explanation disarmed Emma. The suspicion she'd been nursing, that this was some elaborate setup, or worse, that he expected something inappropriate in return for his help, began to dissolve. "And the job?" she asked cautiously. "Completely legitimate," he assured her. "The connection with your brother was coincidental, but when I mentioned the wrong number story to the HR team this morning, James recognized the situation immediately. He's been worried about you." Emma felt a flush of embarrassment. "James doesn't know how bad things got. I didn't want him to worry when he's just getting established himself." "Family pride," Alex noted with understanding. "I know something about that too." He handed her a folder. "These are the details of the position. 3 months, full benefits, competitive salary. We're preparing for a merger and need someone to reconcile some discrepancies in our financial records." Emma scanned the documents, her accounting background immediately spotting the considerable salary, more than she'd made at her previous job. "This is very generous for a temporary position." "We pay for quality," Alex replied simply. "James showed me your resume. 2 years at Deloitte, top of your class at Georgetown. You're overqualified, if anything." Martha returned with water and coffee, providing Emma a moment to collect her thoughts. The job was real. The salary would solve her immediate financial crisis, but something still nagged at her. "Why didn't you just tell me who you were from the beginning?" she asked after Martha left. "In the texts." Alex sipped his coffee, considering. "Would you have believed me?" "Hi, I'm a CEO. Let me help you?" "Probably not," Emma admitted. "And then there's the fact that this is rather unorthodox," he added. "The board would have questions about me personally reaching out to a candidate." Lily stirred in her carrier, making small noises that Emma recognized as the prelude to a full-blown hunger cry. With practiced movements, she lifted the baby and reached for the diaper bag. "May I?" Alex asked, gesturing to the door near his desk. "There's a small kitchenette through there, more private." Emma nodded gratefully and slipped into what turned out to be a well-appointed private break room. As she prepared Lily's bottle, her mind raced through her options. The job seemed legitimate. The company was reputable. She'd looked it up on her phone during the subway ride. And yet the circumstances remained strange enough to give her pause. When she returned, Alex was on the phone, his voice low and tense. "I don't care what Patterson thinks. We're not selling that division. Because I gave my word to those employees, that's why." He caught sight of Emma and quickly ended the call. "Sorry about that. Merger negotiations are always tense." Emma settled back on the couch with Lily in her arms. "It sounds complicated. Business usually is," he replied, watching as she fed the baby. "You're good with her." "I had to be," Emma said softly. "Her father left when he found out I was pregnant. It's just been us." Alex's expression darkened momentarily. "His loss," he said simply. The conversation shifted to the specifics of the job, hours, responsibilities, the project timeline. Emma found herself relaxing as they discussed familiar accounting territory. This, at least, made sense to her. "One last thing," Alex said as their meeting drew to a close. "The on-site daycare is excellent, but it currently has a waiting list. Until a spot opens for Lily, would you be comfortable working from my private office suite? There's a small conference room you could use, and Lily would be welcome." The offer took Emma by surprise. "That's unusually accommodating." "I told you we need your skills," Alex replied, though something in his expression suggested there was more to it. "And the work needs to be kept confidential given the sensitive nature of the merger." As if on cue, Martha appeared at the door. "Mr. Reed, your 10:30 is waiting." Alex stood, extending his hand again. "So, Emma Baker, do we have a deal?" Emma hesitated only briefly before taking his hand. "Yes, thank you for the opportunity." "Perfect. Martha will help you with the paperwork. You can start Monday." He paused at the door. "And Emma, the $400 was a gift, not an advance. No need to pay it back." Before she could protest, he was gone, leaving Emma with the distinct impression that her life had just changed course in ways she couldn't yet imagine. What she didn't see was Alex stopping in the hallway, removing a photo from his wallet, a woman holding a baby girl, and staring at it with a complex mixture of emotions before tucking it away and straightening his shoulders to meet his next appointment. 3 weeks into her contract at Meridian Technologies, Emma had settled into a routine that still felt surreal. Each morning, she and Lily would take the elevator to the top floor, where Martha would greet them with a warm smile and often a cup of coffee for Emma. The small conference room adjacent to Alex's office had been transformed into a functional workspace, complete with a portable crib for Lily's naps. The financial reconciliation project was challenging, but engaging. Exactly the kind of work Emma had excelled at before Lily's birth had derailed her career plans. The discrepancies she'd been hired to investigate were subtle but significant, consistent patterns of small financial aberrations that individually meant little but collectively suggested something more troubling. "These numbers don't add up," Emma murmured to herself, comparing spreadsheets on her dual monitors. Lily babbled happily from her playmat on the floor, entertained by the colorful toys Martha had mysteriously produced on Emma's second day. A soft knock interrupted her concentration. Alex stood at the door, his tie loosened, looking more tired than she'd seen him before. "Making progress?" he asked, entering and immediately crouching down to greet Lily, who squealed in delight at the attention. The baby had grown inexplicably attached to Alex, reaching for him whenever he appeared. "Some," Emma replied, watching their interaction with a mixture of warmth and caution, "but I've found something concerning in the Thompson acquisition accounts." Alex's focus shifted immediately. "Show me." Emma pulled up the relevant files, explaining the pattern she'd discovered. "These variances are too consistent to be accidental. Someone's been systematically siphoning small amounts from multiple accounts, then covering their tracks with adjusted entries." Alex's expression darkened as he studied the screen. "How much are we talking about?" "About 3 million over the past 18 months, Emma said quietly. "You're sure?" "It's why you hired me, isn't it?" she countered. "To find exactly this kind of thing?" A flicker of something, guilt, concern, crossed Alex's face. "Yes, of course." He straightened, running a hand through his hair. "I need you to prepare a complete report. Don't share this with anyone else yet, not even James." "Not even your CFO?" Emma asked, surprised. Alex's jaw tightened. "Especially not Vince, not until we know more." After he left, Emma sat back, troubled by the exchange. Why would the CEO want to keep potential embezzlement from his chief financial officer? Unless... "No," she muttered to herself. "Don't go creating conspiracies." But the seed of doubt had been planted. That evening, after putting Lily to bed in their now considerably more comfortable apartment, thanks to her Meridian salary, Emma began her own investigation. By midnight, she had compiled a disturbing timeline. The financial discrepancies had begun shortly after Vincent Harmon had been appointed CFO, following the unexpected resignation of his predecessor. The next morning, Emma arrived earlier than usual, determined to speak with Alex before the day's meetings began. She found his office dark, which was unusual. He typically arrived before everyone else. A text notification lit up her phone, Emergency board meeting. Use the time to finish your report. We'll talk later, eh? The vague message did nothing to ease Emma's growing unease. She settled Lily in her play area and dove back into the financial records, expanding her search parameters. By lunchtime, her suspicions had solidified into certainty. Someone high up in Meridian was systematically embezzling funds, and the pattern suggested intimate knowledge of the company's financial oversight systems. Emma was so engrossed in her work that she didn't notice Vincent Harmon until he was standing in her doorway, his imposing figure blocking the light. "Ms. Baker," he said smoothly. "Hard at work, I see." Emma instinctively minimized her screen. "Mr. Harmon, can I help you?" The CFO's smile didn't reach his eyes. "I understand you've been working on some special project for Alex. Curious that he didn't involve the finance department." "Just some reconciliation for the merger," Emma replied vaguely, her heart racing. "Nothing exciting." Vincent stepped further into the room, glancing at Lily, who watched him with solemn eyes. "Convenient arrangement you have here. Private office, bringing your child to work. Alex must think very highly of your skills." The insinuation was clear and made Emma's cheeks burn with indignation. "Mr. Reed values efficiency," she said stiffly, "and I found several issues that needed addressing." "I'm sure you have," Vincent replied, his tone making it clear he believed something entirely different was going on. "Just remember, Ms. Baker, Meridian was doing fine before you arrived, and it will continue long after your temporary position ends." After he left, Emma sat shaking, both angry and frightened. The confrontation confirmed her suspicions that Vincent saw her as a threat, but it also suggested something worse, that others in the company might perceive her special arrangement with Alex as something inappropriate. She was still processing the encounter when her phone rang with an unfamiliar number. "Emma Baker speaking," she answered professionally. "Ms. Baker, this is Detective Russo with the Financial Crimes Division." The woman's voice was brisk and official. "I understand you're currently employed at Meridian Technologies." Emma's blood ran cold. "Yes, that's correct. We're investigating some irregularities in Meridian's accounts. I'd like to ask you a few questions." I'm not sure what I can tell you," Emma stammered, looking anxiously toward Lily. "Perhaps we should continue this conversation at our office," the detective suggested. "This afternoon, if possible." By the time Alex finally returned from his meeting at 3 o'clock, Emma was nearly frantic. She immediately pulled him into his office, closing the door. "The police called me," she blurted out. "Financial Crimes Division. They want me to come in for questioning. And Vincent Harmon was here acting suspicious about what I'm working on." Alex's face paled. "Damn it," he muttered. "This is happening faster than I expected." He paced the length of his office, then turned to her with unexpected intensity. "Emma, I need to tell you something, and I need you to trust me." "Trust you?" she echoed incredulously. "Alex, what's going on? Am I being set up for something?" "No," he said firmly. "The opposite. I need to show you something." He unlocked a drawer in his desk and pulled out a thick file. "I haven't been entirely honest with you about why I hired you." Emma felt the floor shift beneath her. "What do you mean?" "You weren't randomly assigned to me through a wrong number," Alex said, his voice low and urgent. "I've been investigating internal theft at Meridian for months. We needed someone from outside the company, someone with no connections to the executive team." "So you, targeted me?" Emma felt sick. "Your brother mentioned you months ago, your skills, your situation. When we needed someone trustworthy, I remembered." Alex looked genuinely regretful. The wrong number text was genuine. That part was coincidence. But once I realized who you were, I saw an opportunity. "You manipulated me," Emma whispered, thinking of Lily, of how vulnerable they had been. "You used my financial situation, my desperation, to give you a legitimate job that you're excellent at," Alex countered. "Yes, I had ulterior motives for hiring you, but not the kind you're thinking. I'm working with the FBI on this, Emma. Vincent Harmon isn't just embezzling. He's laundering money through our international divisions." Emma sank into a chair, her mind racing. "The detective who called is legitimate," Alex confirmed. "But you need to be careful what you tell her. We don't know who else might be involved." Before Emma could respond, Martha burst into the office without knocking, something she'd never done before. "Alex," she said, her usual composure shattered. "They're here, board security and the police. They're saying..." she faltered, looking at Emma with confusion. Saying what, Martha? Alex prompted, already moving toward Emma and Lily. They're saying you've been embezzling funds. They have a warrant for your arrest and they specifically mentioned Ms. Baker as an accomplice. Emma clutched Lily to her chest, a cold wave of terror washing over her. This can't be happening. Alex's face hardened as he made a swift decision. Martha, use the private elevator. Get Emma and Lily out of the building now. Take them to the safe house. The safe house? Emma repeated, feeling as though she'd stumbled into some bizarre thriller movie. Alex, I can't just… Emma, he interrupted, gripping her shoulders and looking directly into her eyes. Listen to me carefully. Vincent knows you found evidence against him. He's trying to frame us both. If you stay here, they'll separate you from Lily while you're being questioned. The thought of being separated from her daughter was enough to galvanize Emma into action. She quickly gathered Lily's things, while Martha collected the files from Emma's desk. What about you? Emma asked Alex as they moved toward a hidden door behind his bookcase. I'll handle this, he said grimly. I have allies on the board. Just stay safe until I contact you. He hesitated, then added more softly, I'm sorry for not being completely honest. But I swear everything else, the way I feel about you and Lily, that's been real. Before Emma could process his words, Martha was guiding her through the hidden passage to a private elevator, leaving Alex to face the approaching storm alone. The safe house turned out to be a modest but comfortable apartment in a secure building across town. Emma paced the living room, Lily finally asleep in the portable crib Martha had somehow procured along with diapers, formula, and other essentials. You seem very prepared for this, Emma observed, watching the older woman efficiently arrange supplies in the kitchen. Martha's normally pleasant expression was serious. Alex has always been careful. When the discrepancies first appeared 6 months ago, he knew something was wrong. So all of this was planned? Emma asked, struggling to reconcile her feelings of betrayal with the evidence that Alex had been working to expose corruption, not perpetrate it. Not all of it, Martha replied, her expression softening. Finding you was genuine coincidence, but Alex recognized an opportunity when he saw it, someone with the skills we needed, with no connections to Vincent's network. But why not just go to the authorities from the beginning? He did, Martha said, but Vincent has powerful friends. The first investigation was quietly closed due to lack of evidence. She handed Emma a cup of tea. Alex needed irrefutable proof before moving forward again, which I found, Emma realized. Which you found, Martha confirmed. Emma sank onto the couch, overwhelmed. And now, I'm hiding in a safe house like some character in a thriller, while Alex is possibly being arrested for crimes he didn't commit. Alex can take care of himself, Martha assured her, though worry lines creased her forehead. He's been preparing for this confrontation for months. Hours passed with no word. Emma tried to distract herself by reviewing the files Martha had saved, looking for anything that might help Alex's case. Around midnight, her phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. Are you safe? Yes, she typed back cautiously. Is this a… It's me, came the reply. Had to ditch my regular phone. Police took my devices but released me for now. Vincent's playing this carefully, making it look like he's the one who discovered the embezzlement. What happens now? Emma asked. Now we use what you found. My contact at the FBI is meeting us tomorrow, 10 a.m. Emma stared at the message. Us? If you're willing. You found the evidence. You can explain it better than anyone. Emma glanced at Lily, sleeping peacefully, unaware of the chaos surrounding them. By agreeing to meet with the FBI, she'd be stepping directly into a dangerous situation, potentially making herself a target. The sensible thing would be to take Lily and disappear. She had enough money saved now to start fresh somewhere, but running would mean Vincent Harmon and his accomplices might escape justice. It would mean abandoning Alex after he'd put himself at risk trying to do the right thing. Despite his deception about how they met, everything else, the job, the accommodations for Lily, the respect for her work, had been genuine. I'll be there, she replied. The next morning, after Martha arrived to watch Lily, Emma met Alex at a nondescript office building downtown. He looked exhausted, but managed a relieved smile when he saw her. You came, he said simply. I almost didn't, Emma admitted. Part of me still thinks this is crazy. It is crazy, Alex agreed, guiding her inside with a gentle hand at her back. But it's also necessary. The FBI agent, A sharp-eyed woman named Keller listened intently as Emma walked through her findings, explaining in detail how the embezzlement scheme worked and how it had been disguised. "This is exactly what we needed," Agent Keller said when Emma finished. "Clear evidence of both embezzlement and money laundering." She turned to Alex. "The board meeting scheduled for this afternoon. Vincent will be there?" Alex nodded. "Along with the board members who've been protecting him. They're planning to formally accuse me and vote me out." "Perfect," Keller smiled thinly. "We'll be ready." The plan was straightforward but risky. Alex would attend the board meeting as expected. Emma would wait with the FBI team in an adjacent room, ready to present her evidence once Vincent made his accusations. The timing would be crucial. They needed Vincent to explicitly lie to the board with federal agents present. As they prepared to leave for Meridian Technologies, Alex pulled Emma aside. "If this goes wrong," he said quietly, "Martha has instructions to get you and Lily out of the country. There's an account set up in your name with enough to start over." Emma stared at him, stunned by the extent of his contingency planning. "It won't come to that," she said, with more confidence than she felt. "Just in case," Alex insisted, pressing a small envelope into her hand. "And Emma, thank you for trusting me even after everything." The board meeting began precisely at 3 o'clock. Emma watched through a monitor in the next room as Vincent Harmon stood to address the gathered executives, his face a mask of regretful duty. "It pains me to present these findings," he began, distributing folders to each board member. "But the evidence is clear. Alexander Reed, with the assistance of an outside accomplice named Emma Baker, has been systematically diverting company funds to offshore accounts." Emma felt sick hearing her name spoken with such calculated malice. On screen, Alex remained impressively calm. "That's a serious accusation, Vince," he said evenly. "I assume you have proof." "The proof is in front of you," Vincent replied smoothly. "Financial records don't lie." "No, they don't," Alex agreed, "which is why I'd like to introduce some additional evidence." He nodded toward the door, the signal they'd arranged. Agent Keller opened the door, and Emma entered the boardroom with 2 FBI agents flanking her. The shock on Vincent's face was momentarily satisfying before it transformed into calculated composure. "Ms. Baker," he said coldly, "how convenient." "Here to defend your benefactor." "Actually," Emma replied, "I'm here to explain how you've been stealing from Meridian for the past 18 months. For the next 30 minutes, Emma walked the board through her findings, methodically dismantling Vincent's false narrative while the FBI agents distributed her report. She explained how Vincent had created a sophisticated system of small diversions, hidden accounting adjustments, and falsified reconciliations to mask the theft of millions. "The pattern begins precisely 3 weeks after Mr. Harmon became CFO," Emma concluded, "and the money trail leads directly to shell companies where he's the beneficial owner." Vincent's face had grown increasingly pale as she spoke. When she finished, he glanced toward the door, clearly calculating his chances of escape. "Don't," Agent Keller warned, noting his gaze. "The building is secured." What happened next occurred so quickly that Emma would later struggle to recall the sequence. Vincent lunged across the table toward her, something metallic flashing in his hand. Alex moved without hesitation, placing himself between them. There was a moment of chaotic struggle, shouts from the agents, and then Vincent was on the floor, restrained. "Alex!" Emma cried, seeing blood spreading across his shirt. "It's just a scratch," he assured her, though his grimace belied his words. "Though I might need a new shirt for the rest of this meeting." 3 hours later, after Vincent and 2 board members had been taken into custody, after statements had been given and wounds treated, Emma sat with Alex in his office. Martha had brought Lily, who was contentedly exploring a new stuffed elephant while the adults processed the day's events. "So what happens now?" Emma asked, watching Alex gingerly adjust the bandage on his arm. "Professionally, damage control. The company will survive this, though the merger might be delayed." He hesitated. "Personally, that depends on you." "On me?" Alex met her gaze directly. "Your contract has 2 months left, but I'd like to offer you a permanent position, head of internal audit, reporting directly to the board for independence." Emma blinked in surprise. "That's a significant promotion." "You've more than earned it," Alex said sincerely. "You saw what experienced executives missed or chose to ignore. Meridian needs someone with your integrity." Emma looked at Lily, now falling asleep, clutching her elephant. "And the accommodations for Lily?" "A spot has officially opened in the company daycare," Alex replied with a small smile. "Though she's welcome in my office any time." He paused, choosing his next words carefully. "Emma, I know how this started wasn't ideal. I manipulated circumstances to get you here, and I'm sorry for that. But everything since, getting to know you, watching you with Lily, seeing your brilliance in action, that's been the most real thing in my life since I lost Charlotte." Emma felt a flutter in her chest that had nothing to do with the day's adrenaline. "I need time to think," she said honestly. "This has been a lot." "Of course," Alex agreed immediately. "Take all the time you need." 6 months later, Meridian Technologies held its annual holiday party. Emma, now established in her role as head of internal audit, watched with pride as her team received recognition for implementing new financial safeguards. Lily, now walking unsteadily, toddled between Emma and Alex, who had long since moved beyond being just her boss. "Ready for the announcement?" Alex whispered, taking her hand. Emma nodded, feeling the weight of the engagement ring still new on her finger. They had taken things slowly, building trust deliberately after their unusual beginning. The board already knew about their relationship. Transparency had become Emma's watchword in both her professional and personal life. As Alex called for attention and shared their news with the gathered employees, Emma reflected on the text message that had started it all, a desperate plea sent to a wrong number that had somehow found exactly the right person. Though she still teased Alex about his knight in shining armor complex, she couldn't deny that sometimes the most unlikely beginnings led to the most perfect endings. Later that night, as she tucked Lily into bed in their new home, the three of them together at last, Emma whispered a truth that still amazed her. Sometimes the mistakes we think will break us are actually pointing us toward where we're meant to be.